We have a very tempered and a narrativized history which is being taught to us. A history which is falling with one economic and one political ideology with the entire Nehru Gandhi era, wherein Savarkar has been tarnished as the villain of the Indian history. Where do you see the remedy lying, wherein we restructured the entire Indian history?
फिर से न्याय ने धर्म को चित कर दिया, clearly showing how narrowly dharma has been interpreted. If you were to ask anyone who has even a decent understanding of Hindu jurisprudence, nyay which is inconsistent with dharma is anyay. Under the Vajpayee government, they had started a commission under the leadership of Sri K. Parasaran on revisitation of the constitution through a dharmic perspective.
First of all, sir, Jai Shri Ram, and I hope
Jai
I'm
Shri
not
Ram.
gonna get bumped outside the gate because this is Gujarat.
Yeah.
I have two questions. Firstly, we have got a plethora of left-wing historians and left-wing political narrative setters,
Right.
and we have got a paucity of right-wing authors in India. So where do you see the problem is, and we are seeing good authors coming out now, where do you see the problem is and what is the remedy to it? That's the first question I have. And second question is, we have a very tempered and a narrativized history which is being taught to us. A history which is falling with one economic and one political ideology with the entire Nehru Gandhi era, wherein Savarkar has been, tarnished as the villain of the Indian history. Where do you see the remedy lying, wherein we restructured the entire Indian history and restructure it according to the actual historical facts? Giving an example that Gandhi, who is the ambassador, known as the ambassador of peace, was the same person who supported Britishers with the entire Zulu rebellion. So
Correct.
where do you see the entire restructuring coming from the historical perspective?
So, as someone who's taken part in multiple public debates on the question of history, this much is clear that the argument has been won on the fact that what has been passed on as history to generations of Bharatiyas is a distorted Nehruvian Marxist version of it. So, in that sense, I think there is really very little response left. But I don't think it stops at that. That is merely the identification of the problem. The question is, what is the solution? On the aspect of solution, allow me to disagree with you on one aspect. There has never been, I repeat, there has never been a paucity of non-left historians producing credible work. The problem is they were never given access to channels of dissemination through the state. And allow me to again say this as a matter of constructive criticism, that remains the position even today. Which means what you see is production of content by private individuals through private publications. Now, have those publications and has that content percolated into state curriculum? The answer is a no. And for that you can't hold either the private individuals responsible, and you can't constantly blame the Gandhi, Nehru, Marxist establishment for it, because you are no more in the opposition. Having come to power, you don't get to say this when you're close to the end of the second term, oh, that our textbooks are still like this. The responsibility for that has to fall squarely at the doors of the center. So the question would be, how seriously have you taken the MHRD appointments? How seriously have you taken the policies of the MHRD? When you had the opportunity to hit reset and do a better job of it through the NEP, did you actually do a good job of the NEP? Where is the public discourse on the criticism as well as, let's say, constructive criticism of the NEP? How many such discussions have we seen? In other jurisdictions, when content and history textbooks are changed, parents participate in discussions with experts to say this is what we want, this is what we don't want. Where are these discussions happening here? So there's a problem at two levels. How seriously do parents want their children to be exposed to the right kind of history? That is the demand aspect. How serious is the government about addressing this particular issue is the supply aspect. And there is a deficiency at both ends. It remains a storm in a teacup where this is the concern of the affluent few or the educated few or the aware few. But otherwise, it is not an electoral issue. It will never find its way into the electoral manifesto. And anything that doesn't find its way into the electoral manifesto has no value for any government. And unfortunately, it so happens that the current dispensation is an election winning machine. Therefore, it needs to be able to look at certain issues beyond the realm of merely winning elections. If your question was, okay, if the argument was, where are the people producing the content? Well, content is now available. So it's a question of populating the right kind of people in institutions such as the ICHR, the Indian Council for Historical Research. Have you seen any changes in the NCRT? No, because one of the former MHRD ministers took pride in making the statement that we have not changed a single page in the history textbook. And he wanted us to show this as a badge of honor, when in fact it is a badge of shame and a badge of non-performance as far as this department is concerned. So as much as I would want to support the government on certain other fantastic initiatives, I would certainly say on the education front, particularly with respect to history, I don't think they have done the job. It's certainly not up to the mark.
I
Uh,
Yes, sir.
Since you're in making inquiry towards rediscovering our roots,
Yes,
you know,
sir.
cultural roots, and since you're also a lawyer, I've asked this a very basic question to a lot of friends who are lawyers. What does law mean in Hindi? And this question is for you as well as all the law department students. This is question one. Question two depends on how do you answer question one.
So, as a non-native speaker of Hindi, I would want to choose between dharma and nyaya. Nyaya is justice. However, I don't know how many people watch this movie, Mulk, by Anubhav Sinha. So at the fag end of the movie, Ashutosh Rana delivers a line, and people in theaters were clapping wildly. I thought, what idiots. Anyways, he basically said at the end of the verdict, फिर से न्याय ने धर्म को चित कर दिया. That was his statement, clearly showing how narrowly dharma has been interpreted, which is it has been approximated and triangulated to religion. If you were to ask anyone who has even a decent understanding of Hindu jurisprudence, nyaya which is inconsistent with dharma is anyaya. There cannot be a concept of justice which is beyond the pale of dharma. And under the Vajpayee government, they had started a commission under the leadership of Sri K. Parasaran on revisitation of the constitution through a dharmic perspective. So what they wanted to do was Bharatiya Karan of the Bharatiya Samvidhan. As usual, it was called Bhagwa Karan. And that project had to be stopped midway. And I haven't seen a discussion on the very same issue come about ever since. So the long answer to your short question is, our notions of justice, our notions of what is right and what is wrong emanate from that Gangotri called Dharma. And Gangotri itself comes from the Jata called Rita. And unless and until we understand these fundamental concepts, we will be muddled in either Anglo-Saxon or Roman notions of justice, which continues to be the case. And anyone who understands the history of common law, which is what we constantly call Bharat as a common law jurisdiction, common law has its origins in the Testament, Old and New. It has very clear biblical foundations. In the first book, with authority, I've cited this from their own judgments. So much so that, okay, so we all know the history of the British East India Company to a significant extent. So British East India Company was given an exclusive monopoly or a license to operate in Bharat. Now those entities who indulged in trade and who were not parties or who were not part of the East India Company, British East India Company, were hauled up and sued by the British East India Company in English courts. They said, I have the exclusive license from the government. How can you indulge in trade in this territory when you don't have the license? I'm the exclusive licensee for this trade. In those judgments, I'll tell you what the discussion was. A Christian state cannot indulge in trade with a heathen jurisdiction or a pagan jurisdiction. And a Christian citizen can indulge in trade with a non-Christian state only if it is sanctioned by the crown, because the crown is the protector of the Christian faith. And therefore, those who violated the exclusive license which was given to British East India Company were held guilty on 2 counts. One for violating the exclusive license, and the second for violating principles of Christianity. Both. I have cited those judgments in the book. This is the extent to which common law and Christian, let's say English jurisprudence, is heavily rooted in Christian jurisprudence or Judeo-Abrahamic traditions. Ask most lawyers and they'll be so comfortable saying, oh, we are proud bearers of common law tradition, we are proud torchbearers of Anglo-Saxon tradition. They don't even know how unsecular these traditions are. So they will bat for secularism under the constitution and also subscription to common law, which has unsecular origins at the same time. It is as antagonistic as it can get. What's your second question?
I think you've already answered my second question. It's just that the concepts are getting lost, in translation or the wrong kind of semantics. So I think
So
you've
when the
answered.
NEP was released, as opposed to asking how do we do a Bharatiya Karan of Indian legal education, there was only one paragraph, and if my memory serves me right, I prepared a representation, para 16.7, where the only question that was asked was, how is artificial intelligence going to affect the justice dispensation system? In the national education policy, where you should have asked whether Hindu jurisprudence, such as the Shad Darshanas, do they find any place as part of political theories and political legal theory education in this country? That question was given a complete go by in such a crucial area. And hence, when someone says this is a very Hindu conscious government, I will always test a government's Hindu consciousness not on the basis of politics, but on the basis of policy. Until Rajniti does not affect Niti, it has really very little consequence.